In Orlando, Schwarbsy staying in Philly. Edwin Diaz going to the Dodgers, leaving the Mets. What are the Orioles doing? Let's find out from the Baltimore Sun. It's on the Window Nation guest hotline. Let's welcome back to the show Jacob Calvin Meyer. Jacob, good afternoon. How you feeling today?
Hey, fellas. Thanks for having me on.
Now, Gunnar Henderson. He's going to play for the U.S. team in the World Baseball Classic, and that's great. USA, let's represent. But his agent, Scott Boras, met with the media, does his yearly scrum. What did old Boras have to say about the Orioles and Mike Elias and extending players like Gunnar and Westberg and some of the other clients he has on the team right now?
Yeah, as you said, Scott Boras did his typical holding court today, and quite funny that two big free agents who are represented by other agencies leaked out their contracts right during the Boras scrum. So that certainly is not yeah, these people can be petty sometimes. But hey, that's the way it goes. So it's funny. A few years ago, right, like Boras would have never been asked any questions about the Orioles because the Orioles at that point were having payrolls of $40 million and $60 million. But now the Orioles seem like legitimate players in free agency for multiple of Boras' clients. And Boras represents three key players in the Orioles who many fans want to see signed to extensions: Gunnar Henderson, Jackson Holliday, and Jordan Westberg. And so he said the same things he's said the past couple of years, which is that, the extension stuff, right? Boras almost never signs players to pre-arbitration extensions. So he said that's something that if you're in arbitration, that's more of a spring training type of discussion. He's said in the past that Mike Elias called him frequently about extensions for those players. And then when it comes to the free agents, he talked about being in, regular communication with Elias on those players. And he again referenced the fact that the Orioles have been more aggressive under new owner David Rubenstein. All of that is great, but I think many Orioles fans are still waiting for a legitimate splash, a big move to actually be made in the offseason and big money actually spent, rather than what has been over the past few years, mostly sort of minor one-year moves.
Now, we've heard Alonso's going to meet with the Orioles. Framber Valdez has a connection. Well, I guess Elias was in Houston way back when. Ranger Suarez, I guess, linked Jacob to the Orioles. So of the free agent scuttlebutt, which one would be the most likely scenario? Who would be willing to take the Orioles' money if they were going to do fair market value spending here?
Yeah, so I had somebody reach out to me yesterday and ask if I feel like Elias, when he spoke with us yesterday, if the tone if Mike's tone has sort of changed than it was compared to what it was a couple of years ago, when Mike would really never answer any questions about how aggressive he will or will not be. And I would say this offseason is sort of another step in that direction, with Elias saying yesterday that he believes the Orioles have the payroll space to make two splashes in free agency this offseason, right? That is something that he would have never said a couple of years ago. One, because it would have been a lie under the Angelos family, and two, just because that's not how he was operating. And so I do think it's real that the Orioles are legitimately talking to people and are willing to spend money on, important to note, on their terms, which often isn't how free agency goes. And when it comes to, you mentioned Pete Alonso, right? I think a lot of people look at the Orioles lineup and say that it needs another veteran stabilizing power right-handed bat, and Pete Alonso fits that. But similar to Kyle Schwarber, and again, this is just my intuition here, the agent's job is to do what the player wants. And if the player wants to stay somewhere, the agent's job is to get that player the most money at that place. And so Kyle Schwarber almost certainly wanted to stay in Philadelphia. And so they got a bunch of offers from a lot of teams to raise the price for him to stay in Philadelphia. And my guess is Orlando is the same thing. And so my guess is there's several free agent starting pitchers that make a lot of sense in Baltimore. In fact, almost every single one at the top of the market, I think, makes a lot of sense with the Orioles. And so whether it's Framber Valdez, who's probably going to make the most money of that group, the rest of them, Ranger Suarez, Michael King, those are guys that you can get for 3 or 4 year contracts at about $25 million a year. It's still a hefty price, but you're not completely going all in. So those are two names for me that make sense.
Jacob Calvin Meyer, Baltimore Sun, talking winter meetings. He's down in Florida with the rest of baseball as deals are getting done. Now, possible trades. Saw Mitch Keller's name, Pittsburgh. They could be looking to move him, who's got controllable years, which is always fun. MacKenzie Gore, I guess he's on the move, maybe, from the Nats here. How active or aggressive could you see Elias with his magic beans trying to get one of these guys via trade here?
Yeah, right. We have proof of concept here, right? A couple years ago, Mike Elias won a trade for Corbin Burns, and there's also another Brewers pitcher that's in a similar situation. Freddy Peralta has 1 year left, and the Brewers are seemingly interested in trading him. That's something that seems to make a lot of sense in my mind, just in the fact that the Orioles and the Brewers have two front offices that view players very similarly, and it might be easier to line up on a trade for a pitch for 1 year of a starting pitcher. Obviously, if you do that, you would also need to get somebody on a longer-term deal in free agency. But I think most people look at this rotation, especially after trading away Grayson Rodriguez, and say, hey, you need two starting pitchers. And if you're going to get two starting pitchers, you might as well get good ones, right? Yeah. And if you sign a Michael King or a Ranger Suarez at $25 million a year, and then you trade for even if it's a Freddy Peralta who's got 1 year left, MacKenzie Gore has 2 years left, that is well within their price range. In fact, if they do those two moves and then they do a couple ancillary things, the payroll is going to be about what it was last year, which was in the 160 to 170 million range. So they have payroll space. They're about $50 million below what they were at last season. And so whether it is through free agency or trade, I think most people expect the Orioles to make a couple of significant additions on top of some supplementary moves.
Jacob, if they were to trade, who are the trade chips that you think the other teams would want?
Yeah. So if it's a team that is kind of down in the dumps now and they're rebuilding, a couple of prospects that make a lot of sense. Again, this is conjecture on my part. A player like Esteban Mejia or a prospect like Nate George, two guys that really topped last season and became top 100 prospects. Those are really interesting names, higher variance players for the team that would be receiving them. That would be like a Pirates, right? If the Pirates, aren't really looking to compete because they never look to compete. I guess that's sort of changed this offseason, people say, but I'll never believe it. And then if it's the Brewers, on the other hand, you look at a situation where, okay, they're going to want players similar to with the Corbin Burns deal where they got Joey Ortiz and DL Hall. They're going to want players closer to the major league or even established in the major league. So, people obviously talk about Ryan Mountcastle potentially being traded if a team needs a first baseman. Dylan Beavers is somebody that obviously played really well in his last season, but his role on the team, if everybody stays healthy, looks to be one as more of a platoon player right now after they traded for Taylor Ward. So the Orioles have plenty of options within their system to trade from to acquire a starting pitcher.
He is Jacob Meyer. He's in Florida with the beautiful people at the baseball winter meetings. Jacob, appreciate the time as always. If we don't talk to you, Merry Christmas to you and the family, and we'll catch up with you soon. Don't come back empty-handed. How's that sound?
That's not my job. Thanks, guys.
Right. Jacob Meyer, live from Florida. We'll come back, reset the program for you. Got Harbsy full effect at the NFL lunchtime. Feeble 5, we're the 5 worst teams in the NFL through 14 weeks. And then Jason Cole, longtime NFL writer, talking about the league, the way it's put together now. And is there really a team that's the best in football?